Welcome to the Weird Octopus Podcast, where there is a series of conversations with the humans who showed up before there was a map. I'm Perry, the founder of the Octopus Movement, and I believe nonlinear thinking is not just a way of solving problems and creating possibilities, it's a way of being in the world. Each week, I speak with three founding members of our global human mycelium to explore who they are, why they think differently, and how they're shaping a future that cannot be built in straight lines. Well, let's meet today's guest. I'm so happy he's here. Today's guest is Akshay Bhat. He's in India. He's an engineer, a writer, a systems thinker, and one of
Yeah,
those people who do not just build technology, but keep asking what kind of world that technology is helping to create.
yeah,
Publicly, he describes himself as an IT Delhi computer science graduate interested in building reliable systems at scale. And across his writing and talks, you can see the same mind moving between infrastructure, engineering, science, entrepreneurship, and bigger philosophical questions with unusual ease, especially the philosophical questions. If I can just describe you in one or two words, it's philosophical questions. That's Akshay for me. What I find fascinating about Akshay is that he seems to live in a space between architecture and reflection. He's spoken on many topics, and he's written about simplifying data infrastructure and carries that rare kind of nonlinear intelligence that can zoom from technical depth into systems level meaning without losing clarity. Um, I'm so happy you're here, Akshay. Welcome
yeah,
to the podcast.
yeah. Thanks, Perry, and it's really good to be here. So initially, the way I got, uh, you know, introduced to the Octopus Movement was through a friend of ours, and I was in US to give a talk on AI and general universal systems and
Mhm.
like Hinrich, I met him, and I was talking with him, and we had a lot of interest in neurodiversity and mental health support and using AI to help that. And he just suggested that you should really talk to Perry because he's doing something really interesting, and you would love to talk to him. And when I looked through the uh, movement and how what has been happening, it just struck a chord, and it felt very natural that it like discovering something that you believe should be there, should be out there in the world, right? So it fit that very interesting space, and your life story was also interesting, and and I realized I want to help this movement, want to be part of it. Again, my own life, it I have some things going on, and sometimes I'm free and can contribute a lot. So I just jumped right on board. And for me, yeah, like I mentioned, right? So the movement itself has felt less like joining an organization and more like finding this a strange and beautiful signal.
I
Um,
remember that you were going into a congress, and you were going to give a lecture on AI. I remember that very well. We spoke with each other just before you did that. Like, I need to go.
yeah,
I need to give my keynote. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Akshay, uh, before would dive into a lot of other things, I like to ask always um, this first question first. How would you? I just gave the audience a description in how I see you, but how would you describe your inner octopus? What makes you a nonlinear thinker? What makes you different from others? What makes you you?
correct. So that's like I try to keep myself simple, but like everyone is complex in their own way, and my interests, they follow a very simple path. I had been interested in physics initially, and
Hmm.
astronomy. All right, and I would want to speak with you regarding some of those interests as well. And there are very interesting things happening in those areas which align very well with the philosophy of the Octopus Movement. and then I ended up like having interest in computer science as well, because information and physics, they are like a two sides of the same coin. So information creates reality, and reality creates or makes information possible. And this cycle has been going on in the universe, and now we have a lot of complexity, and there is probably no other organism in the world that is capable of representing complexity naturally as much as an octopus. So although humans have intelligence which is makes them capable of using tools and make them more capable, but naturally, if you think who as an individual inhabits the most complex environment, I would say octopus is right up there. Like yeah, definitely humans would compete with that, but it's just naturally capable of being involved in so many things. So uh, and yeah, my interest diverged into uh, not just physics but into computer science, and I started building those things. And there's always an opportunity to build and problems to solve. So one interest led to many, uh, and but there is still a coherent whole. So there is still a philosophy or core interest behind that. Something that would again be represented by an octopus, and that's who I am. And public speaking, and that's how I met a few people, and probably how we got connected earlier as well. But that was also like an interest of mine, where I was doing things that I loved, and spent a lot of years doing it. Engineering, physics, information, and all these things, and it suddenly had become valuable to the industry at some point. So I got a few opportunities to speak, at different places. And but still, my core interests are uh, how can you think differently? How can you solve problems in a way that is made possible today, but was not possible before? Or how can you solve something that um, was overlooked before, right? And these are things that people who think non-linearly outside the box can do. And this you know community that we
Do
have
you
built.
think, I'm sorry, I can't wait. I want to ask you this.
Yeah,
Do you think, so you're talking about human intelligence, right? About
correct.
the amazing ability of humans to
Yeah.
come up with ideas and solutions. And do you think we are using, as humanity, are we using our human intelligence enough? Are we harvesting enough from our own capabilities with our human intelligence?
um, uh, no, so I don't think we are using it. So the thing is, we have an incentivizing function. So most of us have some like we have interest, but we have an economy where we need to make money, and there are organizations which are built to do a certain goal. Government has a certain goal, right?
Hmm.
So all these are linear goals, all right? So what ends up happening is most of our intelligence is spent towards solving problems that create an output uh, which which is designed into the system rather than think outside the system. That is one of the issues. And the other thing is, a lot of us, because of these structures around us, are spending our mental bandwidth in chasing the same problems, and we are overlooking things that need to be looked at. And we are not thinking through those problems in a way that you know uh, that is outside the boundary of the structure that has already been built. So
Mm.
there is a lot of scope to be the best, do the best, and we are definitely nowhere close to that.
Do you think a basic income, a global basic income, can change that? If
Yes.
the normal focus isn't more about, making sure you can pay your mortgage, your
Yes.
rent, and food on the table, then
Yes.
something amazing would happen, I think, right?
I wholeheartedly, like, support the idea. um, so the thing is, a lot of wealth generation is getting automated. Less and
Hmm.
less people are able to generate the wealth that is required through machines and whatnot. If the wealth is distributed, then um, it will free up a lot of potential that has been trapped to actually do things that have been overlooked and build stronger communities. That is definitely there. um, and this is a problem that's going to happen more and more. Like, we see, these instability and layoffs and all that impacting even things like the IT industry, which was not the case before. So um, yes, this is going to be important for all of us. It's just that it's not been a fashionable political idea, I would say, for the past few years. But
No, what is that? Why is it so? It's not, is it? It's an interesting topic. I think it's something that could affect all of us. I think
yeah,
it creates something amazing as an opportunity for countries and the whole world and for peace and whatnot. And yet, right, it's such a difficult topic. What is
yeah.
that? Why do you think that is? Is
um,
that our conditioning? Like we're
yeah.
conditioned to work, make a living, and that's it. So if you remove all of that, like the fear of freedom, if you remove everything, what will be left? Is it fear? Is it what do you think it is?
So our culture is, sort of impacted by the constraints of the past. So our parents, or our older generations, they have thoughts, or like logic, which makes sense for them. But there are a lot of new possibilities that have opened up. But at the same time, wealth concentration has worsened, right? So a few corporations and individuals own more wealth. This is especially the case in some parts of the world, more than others. But and they once they do that, they control the political systems, right? So which makes change hard. But at the grassroots level, there is more of a push. And there has been trials that has happened in certain parts of the world where they have given, income to a small village or small community, and the impacts have been positive. So I think the idea, time for that idea has come. It's just that
I
when it's
think
going to
so
be
too.
implemented.
Yeah.
uh,
Is it an engineering problem, you think?
yes. So finance is already engineering problem.
Hmm.
It's already being solved. But currently all the problems that are being solved are, solutions for the rich people to make you get even richer.
Yeah.
But it's definitely uh, an engineering problem, but something that would require the intervention of the government, or a broader society, to actually have bring about those changes.
What do you think we as us all together are ignoring now? Do you think I have a feeling because your background and what you do and your
Yeah.
philosophy and your engineering mindset, I want to ask you, what do you think we, the normal people, are ignoring? I have a feeling that you have a thought about that.
Yeah. um, I think one of the interesting places to look at where uh, where changes are required would be actually to look at the neurodiverse community. All
Hmm.
right, people with ADHD, people with autism, and all that, and every society has it. And interestingly, a lot of the non-linear thinkers and uh, people who think differently are found in those communities, but they usually lack a voice, um, due to social, economic, or other reasons. And I fortunately had the opportunity to build, like some things, and be like advocate, and for that community. And what I noticed is, yes, the things that we are speaking about, which is making their lives easier, as a starting point, and how to make that happen, would give us general solutions for the whole society. So how do you make the life of people in the neurodiverse community better, would give us some solutions that would be applicable for the whole society. And some of the things we are talking about, like the basic income plan, right? And um, allowing the people to do things that they actually want and pursue the interest they have, those will free up a lot of the potential um, to think outside the box, not just as an individual but as a society. So
Yeah,
that would have the biggest impact.
I think so too. That's why I started the Octopus Movement, because I thought we're missing out on an opportunity if we don't look at the people that are slightly different, whatever
Yeah.
that may be, right? And if that's in the
Yeah.
space of neurodivergent thinking or being um, labeled as with ADHD or dyslexia or autism or not, right? One time I was at the university and I asked them to design the space before neurodiversity, because what does it mean when you're not tested and you are as weird as you are after you're tested? So at some point you have ADHD and autism, for example. So, and then you identify yourself with ADHD and autism, but who were you before that identification? I thought that was
Correct.
interesting, but it didn't work out. The question was too difficult, and I think this is something we are ignoring. That being different, whatever that may be, has a lot of potential. But I think I don't know if you saw that, but the CEO of Palantir, who's quite well known, he also said, the future looks bright for those that are neurodivergent thinkers.
Yeah.
Um, they can survive the next decade while everything is changing. Why do you think he says that? Also from your perspective in technology and engineering, and why is it so interesting to look at the future from a neurodiverse perspective?
Yes. So addressing both the points. One is, looking at neurodivergent people is personally interesting for us because by definition or by nature they're going to be thinking more non-linearly than the average population.
Hmm.
Number one. And if you think of the average society as a house of cards, they are typically the cards left on the table trying to do something or build something of their own. All right. So it helps, and that's how the structure of the game is, I would say. And the other thing is, as what I've noticed is, as a in the neurodiversity community, people, like build they try to build a structure or a community and other coping mechanisms around it to deal with their lives, and those structures are where technology is having the biggest impact. For example, um, a neurodivergent person using uh, online and computer and other online tools to deal with finding a house, finding a job, finding a community. That person is who has spent years doing that. When the technology improves and becomes better, so he's well poised, or she is well poised to take advantage of those improvements, right? So in that sense, the statement is correct that there are going to be a lot of good and interesting things happening for them. And the other would be that,
Can I ask you
um,
quickly a question? Sorry to interrupt you, but do you think
yes, yes, sure.
with regards to AI, for example, do you think the neurodivergent
Yeah.
mind has more capability in using AI? Do you think it's more efficient, more fun, more results for a neurodiverse mind to use AI than a neurotypical mind? I never thought
Yeah.
about that. So you think
Yeah,
so?
so that's a interesting question. And I've so the thing is, neurodiverse minds are more variable. So you see, on both sides of the spectrum, there'll be more variety. But one thing I've noticed is they are more capable of keeping more like pictures and other graphical data in their mind, which allows them to deal with the output or the system better. So there's a significant proportion of neurodiverse people, especially people with ADHD, who are better at using AI simply because they are uh, picture thinkers by first, and right, and the system is built in a way that their ability to use more data and keep more context in their head, um,
That's so
allows them
that
to.
that also could mean that I like to simplify things always.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
um, maybe um, an ADHD prompt is better than a neurotypical prompt because we see so many connections at the same time. We can
yeah,
visualize that and we
correct,
can go beyond the prompt where you want to go in
correct,
combining everything. So the prompting of an ADHD is much better, generally
yeah,
speaking, than a neurotypical person.
correct,
That's a bold statement that I like, Akshay.
yeah, yeah,
Let's go for that, right?
yeah.
That
So
makes
typically
sense.
it'll have more context. The ADHD prompt will have more context, and it'll be looking at edge cases that were not covered before. So um, and it will be different for sure, right? So yes, um, and for the other ones, like the other varieties of neurodiversity, even that, like different is always good for the society as a whole.
Hmm.
And if AI enables them to do something that they could not before, then that is a net positive.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think that happens a lot. And that's also why I'm super excited about the future that before AI, for neurodivergent minds, life could be challenging because it was so linear and it was
Yeah,
so in the expectation of how it should be in a box. And now with AI, there is all of a sudden a new combination possible. And with your nonlinear thinking, you can use AI as your best dance partner in the world, basically. Right?
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. So, do you have ADHD?
Clinically, probably I don't know, like but I've never tested that,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
I have suspected that, and when I've spoken to people who have it, I have noticed that I kind of vibe with them, a lot, right? So,
Mhm.
uh, yeah, uh, you know, yeah,
It's not official, but and this is interesting. It doesn't need to be official for me. You just notice that you flow very well with people um, in the same
correct,
space, and
yeah.
how wonderful is that to express that? Yeah. Um, What else should we talk about? You talked about the elder octopus, and what is that? What is you've created kind of a system connected to the octopus. Can you explain more about that for me,
Right.
please?
So, so the idea of elder octopus was, you know, inspired by some of the, religious communities and other places that were more of a community than, like a corporation, right?
Hmm.
Healthy communities which like brought people together, and idea of creating that community when I did that while I was in California was to create a space where people who think differently and solve problems differently come together and feel open enough to put their ideas out, and many of the times their ideas were better when um, like people who uh, like whose idea was not the getting the most attention before, when they got a space to express that and refine it, and they had people with them to refine it. So what ended up happening was they found a community, number one, and also um, the idea, whether it was an analytics idea or a AI idea or a finance idea, it ended up being better. So the like if we look at even like the the animal kingdom and what role the elder octopuses play, they make sure that the people joining the community or the younger octopuses are able to deal with the complex environment in the best way possible and get them teach them the ropes, so to speak. And I try to do that when in the small community I was part of, and the results were interesting. We uh, pitched a startup which won the pitch of that competition. We pitched an finance and AI idea, which also was the best. And these was from people who were different. I brought them together, and um, yeah, the idea was that you can create like, a new output or something beyond what is expected from people by creating a space and community for them where they are allowed to think different.
Yeah, I like that idea. It's it's almost like finding the mother octopus where um, you can connect with to um, to let your nonlinear thinking go, to let your weird mind go, and where you
Yeah.
can have the support to be different and translate that so it fits well into the society where it doesn't always fit well, right? There's still bias and judgment, and oh boy, if you're different, there is
Yeah.
often an opinion about that, and hopefully that will be less and less, and hopefully the world will see that there are so many opportunities by looking at the weird angle. Um, Akshay, if you could whisper a sentence into everybody's ear at the same time all over the world, and it will automatically be in their own language, what would you whisper in everyone's ear?
I would say, you know let your uh, let your true humanity and your true self shine, and let it uh, let it be the guiding light for others. So let your inner weirdness or in your inner spark, keep it alive, and bring the best out of it, and let that be a guiding light for others. I would say that in whatever language the person understands.
Like um that would be beautiful if all of a sudden everybody hears that sentence whispered in their ear, follow your own spark and be your true self and inspire others. I like that. Thank you, Akshay. Thank you for being here, not just in the podcast, but also in the movement as a founding member, as you. I love that. Thank you for doing this. And if you're listening and you feel that spark that Akshay is talking about, follow that, please. Nonlinear thinking is not a strategy, it's a kind of love, and it grows where we share it. I believe that strongly. Thank you,
Yeah.
Akshay. Thank you so
Yeah, and
much for being
thank you,
here.
Perry, for everything that you do, and you are the guiding light for the movement for sure. And I hope you continue to be that for us for a long time.
Always. Always, Akshay.
Yeah,
This is so much fun to be together with people like you. I will never change this. This is just wonderful. Thank you, Akshay. All the way in India from the Netherlands.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.